Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is JC Cortez, and welcome to Synergia. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. Closed captioning is available for this presentation. Also, we're on Facebook. Good morning, Facebookers. Buenos dias. If you have any questions and you're joining us on Facebook, please place them in the comments section where we'll be watching for those throughout the presentation. Also, we are recording this presentation and a PowerPoint will be shared with you. There will be a poll at the end of this presentation, and I'll remind you at the end in case so you can activate that and give us some feedback. We encourage questions at any time. I always want to say, you know, a lot of presentations and webinars, you'll hear presenters say, oh, save them for the end. And by the time, I don't know about you, but by the time we get to the end, I've forgotten like half the things I wanted to ask. So I encourage you to ask your questions at any time. And thank you so much for doing so. We hope that everybody leaves here with a better understanding of how to collaborate with partners that are supporting our children. And yes, before we get started and before I introduce my co-presenter, Ms. Evelyn Hernandez from Ramapo for Children, I just give you a few words on Synergia. Again, my name is JC Cortez. I'm the Director of Training and Development here at the Metropolitan Parent Center. Synergia is located in East Harlem, and we are a multi-service agency serving New Yorkers and their families with disabilities for more than 40 years. We offer training and information for parents, especially whose primary language is not English or who have special training needs they themselves. We also help and develop and partner with professionals and policymakers to improve outcomes for all children with disabilities. We're one of the 3 federally funded parent centers here in the city of New York. Our partners would be Advocates for Children and Include NYC, and we're always trying to uplift the work and support for families of children with disabilities across the city and across the 5 boroughs. Yes, so we have a range of programs, and if you ever are interested, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll share my information at the end of this presentation, and there will be a follow-up email as per usual if you've been to any of my webinars. So thank you so much. And yes, I want to introduce a special colleague, Miss Evelyn Hernandez from Ramapo for Children. It's going to be who she and I are going to be talking to you about collaborating with partners who support our children. You know, we work with so many people throughout the school careers of our children, no matter how old they are, whether they get in the system at early intervention or preschool special education or just school age special education and even beyond. And a lot of the partners that we work with, we're going to be working with them for a while they're at that school, you know, whether that's all of like preschool or all of like K through 12, you know, whether that's a speech therapist or an occupational therapist, school psychologist, teachers. And, you know, sometimes we always want to support the work that they're doing, especially if we notice that it's having positive effects on our child. You know, if we see it's working at school, how can we keep supporting it at home? And also, you know, like, I don't have to be a teacher. I don't have to be a speech therapist to continue implementing and incorporating techniques that are being used that are benefiting my child. So I want to reinforce that at home. So we're going to talk about that. And then lastly, before we stop, we're going to talk about how to like navigate conflict resolution in a few certain aspects, because, you know, like, as I said, you know, we're going to be working with these people for a while, and maybe we don't always agree. You know, I'm a parent and I want what I want for my child, and you're saying something contrary to what I feel, my beliefs. And so, you know, how do we talk about that? How do we patch things up? You know, like, we can't just give up and say, well, I don't want to work with that person ever again. So we want to talk about that too. But yes, I want to introduce Evelyn Alvarez. She's a great colleague, very thoughtful and insightful. And Evelyn, welcome back to Synergia.
Thank you, JC. It's always a good time at Synergia. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. Hello to people that are in the chat. Also people that are on Facebook. Hey, y'all. Happy Thursday, which is the best day of the week. I'm so excited that most of our workshops take place on Thursday, JC. It's my favorite day of the week. So I am here, as JC mentioned. My name is Evelyn Alvarez, pronouns she and they. I am the Senior Director of Family Initiatives at Ramapo for Children, which means that I get to really support my team and my own self, and being able to think about what are some real important strategies and improve the relationships that learning environments have with parents, right? And also support parents in being able to identify strategies, tools, systems that they can utilize to be able to get as close as possible to creating the type of life that they want to experience with themselves and with their children, their families. As JC mentioned today, you know, there are lots of ways that we collaborate with lots of people that have impact in micro and macro ways, right? And so we have, for instance, you know, we're talking specifically about therapists or other people that are in there, but this might also be your baby daddy or your baby mama, right? Sometimes like we also need to these strategies might be helpful for co-parents. They might be helpful for people who live in multi-generational households where we're often hearing that there are some levels of disconnect, right? And so being able to also contribute and see these people who are potentially influential and really support, add to your quality of life, to include them in the process of planning, because that also maintains and sometimes rebuilds relationships. And so we'll be talking about that today. So because we're starting a little bit late and we have quite a bit to cover, I'm going to go right into my screen presentation, but I do appreciate that we already have a question here from Paul Louis in the chat about anything that a high school student and college student can use. And so we invite you to be a little bit more specific about the strategies that you think might be helpful, but also mentioning that these strategies that we'll be talking about are things that everyone can use, right? That they're multi-generational, the use is multi-generational, and that, again, these are skills, right? That when we master these specific skills or these ideologies, that we get a little bit closer to showing up in the way that we would like to.
Yeah. And just to add to that, you know, these are transferable skills, as Evelyn mentions. You know, yes, we're giving them to you in the context of, you know, working with your child and providers and teachers and school staff and personnel. But also, I mean, this can help you in relationships in general, you know, like Evelyn said, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your boss, you know, or a colleague that's, you know, just rubbing you the wrong way this week. You know, so these are different things that, you know, can help you know, how can we support each other and how can we get people to support us, and like how we can just really enhance the wheel, you know, oil that wheel that's turning our relationships.
Absolutely. But I think this is a great question to really start with and recognize that for many of us, we need to be able to equip multiple people in our lives with some of these skills as well. So for instance, if you are a working parent and the interaction with schools is done by your 16-year-old child, right? That's helping with a younger child, then they might also need to be equipped with some of these skills as they advocate for their sibling. Or for that matter, we all, I'm sure JC, you also have heard of people who like their child might be the only person that's really fluent in English. Mm-hmm. And so they get to have more of these specific skills because they're also doing a lot of the family advocacy or advocacy on behalf of the family. So I'm going to just go right into my screen share here. And just a reminder that, you know, today we're going to share strategies that have been helpful for communicating with our teams, and also identify a strategy that we want to use with our personal team. So sometimes we're like JC said, things may or may not be working out very well, but we get to really be in decision of like, what is one thing that I would really love to be able to strengthen, right? In terms of the way that I operate and see the world. And so, as JC said, I'm here from Ramapo for Children. And if you look on the right side of the screen, you will see that these are the areas that we really talk quite a bit about, right? Like we support in developing and building authentic relationships and creating community and identifying and dismantling barriers to participation and to support people in developing skills and restore connections. Because what I do want to say is that often for many of us, we have been raised to be conflict avoidant. But sometimes being conflict avoidant can also be to our detriment, where we don't develop the skills to be able to confront challenges when they show up And that also can be a real difficult thing, particularly if you are part of a team, right? Like in my household, we are very much into sports. And I say all the time that I am the quarterback of my household, right? So for those football fans out there, but a quarterback is only as good as their receivers, right? So if you catch what I'm giving, if you catch it, then we win it. If you ain't catching it, then it doesn't matter how well or how strong or how powerfully I can throw a ball, because if there's not going to be anybody on the other side to catch it, right, then we're not scoring. So just kind of thinking about that, whatever works for you in your household, but that also keeps me moving to think about what I need to do to be as sharp as possible and to identify the minute changes that happen with people on my team so that we can always keep our goal in clear sight. And so we're just going to, really quickly give some best practices for the session. The chat is open and JC and I are listening. So that is pretty much what you need to know, that if you have any questions or any commentary, please feel free to share in the chat so that we can incorporate your questions in real time into the process of how we're doing this work. And so here today, like really the goal of this session in many capacities is to create community. Right, is to be able to think about our community and to strengthen it and to think about how we all bring unique identities and experiences to our communities, right? And so we are connected to each other by shared purpose, values, and goals. And that our community is always evolving and changing, right? And so thinking about the fact that as we think about collaborating with partners, the first important thing to do is to think about what are our goals? Why are these people our partners? Right? Has a relationship expired? And if it has, what do we need to do to let a relationship go with a lot of love so that we can also be able to create the team that is right for our family at this phase? So for instance, the support that you might need when your child is 3 may not be the same support that you need when they're 11. Right? And if you're working with a specialist for 3-year-olds, then the likelihood of you might need a specialist for an 11-year-old is high, right? And so we all have to really navigate those types of, confront those things, because it can be hard to let go of a relationship. And that is a critical thing. I see you nodding, JC. What are you thinking of?
No, I think that's really important. I mean, needs evolve, and we have to remember that, like what might be good today may not be good next week or next year, next month. And, but sometimes we have to just be willing to like have an open mind and test the waters and kind of like see, I look at this kind of like with behavior issues, that we might be having with our child, like, oh, like we're trying to understand, the reasons and the whys and the hows. And sometimes we get it right and sometimes we don't, but we just have to keep trying and, like honor that, maybe what worked yesterday isn't going to work tomorrow, and not be downtrodden or disappointed and discouraged. I do see something in the chat, a comment from a parent saying, my children have multiple home attendants and they have issues among themselves. Many times I feel cut in the middle. How do I find a middle ground? How do I deal with adults that get anxious with my autistic children, and my child gets anxious, then everyone is on edge? That's a great question, and thank you so much for asking that. Evelyn?
So, I mean, I think that it's important to also recognize that wherever possible, you want to be clear about what the goal is, right? And also, again, we're identifying barriers. Like we talked about a couple of slides back. It's like, what are the barriers? And so if an adult gets anxious, then that's a barrier to them showing up optimally. What do they need to learn, understand, so that they can reduce the anxiety? Because your child sounds like they're responsive to the anxiety that is showing up for the adult. And so how do we support the adult? Or is it an adult that has to be part of your child's life in that particular way without you? Right? Again, these are the types of tough conversations that we think about, because it's like, maybe you're not the right person. I'm going to need someone who is going to also reduce the stress of everyone. Right? And not to say that you can't be a part of it, but it's like, if you're adding more stress, like you have to think about your quality of life as well. And so if you're doing the management of having to support the adult, having to support the child, having to support It's like, is it worthwhile for you?
Yeah,
Right?
that has to be really exhausting, you know, and feeling like the middleman and kind of like a referee in some sort of way, and like a
Right.
therapist to all, you know, that's
Yeah. And so, and also recognizing that, quite frankly, like, um, there are so many people who don't fully have an understanding of autism, right? And so being able to be clear about what you expect the team to know is an important piece, and recognizing that we're still all learning in real time about how to support people as they grow, because change, you know, like, we get different challenges, right? New level, different, you know, like, it's a different thing. So there's that piece. For example, like in my own work, for instance, we commit to reading one book a quarter about autism. And what it does is that it allows us to have shared understanding of some of the things that come up. And it's actually really great to learn in community, because then we can identify like, oh, this is happening, or this is what we're experiencing, or this is how we can show up. So without having to maybe do that, you know, we'll talk a little bit further on, and I'll give some clear strategies, and hopefully some of these will resonate with you for your child. But for anyone else, like, that's also something to really be thinking about. Like, what do I need to know, and what do the people around me need to know about autism? And so I'm just going to skip this slide because I want to get to the point. But really, the reality that, you know, at Ramapo, we say all the time that the role of a caring adult, right, is, or people that interact in compassion with one another, is to do one of two things. We meet needs and we teach skills, fundamentally, right? Like, that is what we do. We meet needs and teach skills. And so the needs might look like, I'm hungry. That's a need, right? A skill might look like, what do I do when they're crying? Because I don't know what to do. And so that is the teaching of the skill. And, you know, for example, many of you that are parents or caregivers out there, you'll have a situation where someone will say, I don't know what's happening with my baby. And you'll be like, child, that ain't nothing but a baby sleepy. Give me this baby, right? Give me this baby. Let me put this baby to sleep so the baby can chill. And 15 minutes later, the baby's snoring, sleeping, the parent is wiped out, and the expert is like this, like, you know, shrug, I do that, right? And so thinking about the ways that we can also meet each other's needs and teach skills. And, you know, here we have, like, just thinking about the fact that one of the things that makes that more accessible is to have a clear set of expectations and create the structures and routines that meet the needs and support the teaching of skills. So if you're going to teach a skill, you got to figure out why you want to teach it and make it as clear around teaching it, and that it also is part of a structure or a routine. So all these things go in mind. And I added this slide here because I think that as we start to think about a team, even though this is specific to family, but even as a team, we get to really have some strong decisions about how we want to show up with and for each other. Right? So if we take some of these things and we, like in these questions to ask section, we substitute the word family for team, we still get to some really important questions. What kind of team do we want to be? What kind of things do we want to do? What kind of feeling do we want to have in our home, right? What embarrasses you about our team? That might be it. That actually might be a really important question. Because again, these are the things that allow us to really clearly identify the barriers for fully jumping in, right? What makes you want to come to work or come here, right? Why are you here? And quite frankly, people have a right to respond in ways that we may not understand. They might be like, I'm trying to get a job. This is my job, right? And for a lot of parents, you're also looking for the type of energy that you want your child to experience, right? Like I remember my mom in Spanish used to always say, el que le besa la boca a tu hijo, tu corazón endulza. So the person that kisses your child warms your heart. And so as a parent, I certainly have been deeply in love with people who I know love my child. They don't have to say it. I can feel it. I am aware by the engagement that they have. And there have been people that have been very transactional. right, with my child. And I invite you to look for people that are, to really identify what roles can be transactional for you and what roles you need that person to also have deep understanding and love for your child and for you.
And I think also to that point, Evelyn, like it's also important, you know, like when you realize that you have a need that's not being met, it's okay to identify it with that other person. It doesn't mean you have to be necessarily, you know, like confrontational, but just saying, you know what, hey, I noticed that whenever you do this, I don't really feel like, you know, I feel like it could be done better. And knowing how to talk to that person and just saying, you know, like, hey, bring them in. You know, there's like the call out and call them in. I don't know if you guys have heard that. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a dynamic rule. And that's one way that, you know, like this is important, you know, like, hey, you know what, I feel like this can be done better, or maybe I would like to see it this way. And that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
maybe they get it, maybe they want to get it, or maybe they just tell you like, that's just not me and that's not what you're going to get. And, you know, like, and if that's the case, then you have to, you know, like do a self-assessment and internal reflection and just kind of think, is this okay? Or do I need to like
Right.
take some sort of remediation somewhere else?
Yeah. And it's like, you know, lots of people now also have been using the term call forward.
Mm,
So that as opposed to out or in, we're just calling people forward. Like the call out is with the intention of moving us forward.
right.
Right. And so being able to also, and part of what this work requires is also confronting a lot of the learned behavior that we have, right? For many of us, depending on the culture, we hear things like, it's better to not say anything than to say something that's going to be right? Like, I'd rather not say anything, or si no tienes nada bueno que decir, if you don't have anything good to say, be quiet.
Yep.
And so that also robs us of the voice and the agency that we need to optimally advocate for ourselves and our quality of life, right? And so being able to confront those held beliefs and those values that, depending on your lifestyle and your needs, just are not they're not in as much alignment as we think. And that there also is generally a way to really be honest. We don't have to, honest and harmful are not synonymous, right? And so maybe our honesty might be misconstrued or misunderstood or misinterpreted, but we also have to have confidence that whatever feedback we give is coming from a place of positive intention. And so these are just some questions and some ideas that we have, but here we get to some of the things that we really invite you to think about. The first thing is, for tools and strategies for collaborating with partners, is get organized. I cannot, right? Like, there's an infinite amount of misunderstanding that happens simply from a lack of organization. So it can be something like, I thought the meeting was at 8. No, it's at 8:15. Now you wasted my time, right? And now I'm positioning you as in a specific way. But the organization can come from a notebook. I am a fan. I always have one handy, at least one. If the rest of my apartment wasn't a mess, I would show you the 12 notebooks that I have stacked here, right? Or you can also be one of those people that are like, I'm going to give you a calendar invite. I live by a calendar invite. If it's not on my calendar, it did not happen.
It's not happening.
Even if I verbally commit, if you don't send me an invite or I don't send you an invite, chances are I'm not going to remember it. So, right. So there's that energy, right? So really just fundamentally getting organized and thinking about what it is that you need. I personally enjoy taking Sunday nights, and I take 20 minutes on Sunday night, and I just think about whatever's happening this week, right? If it's a really important meeting, I send another email to the person to be like, I'm looking forward to meeting with you on Thursday, or something to that effect. But that has really saved quite a bit of frustration just with that singular action, right? Mm-hmm. And the other one is to learn and identify strengths of individuals in the team. So, for example, they're always like people that are morning people, right? That they would prefer to meet at like 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning. And you're like, ooh, I don't know. But however, if you really need something from them and this is their strength time, then it might behoove you to be accommodating to operating toward their strength time, right? For instance, I have colleagues that are like, my brain is fried by 4 p.m. So I make every effort to not meet with them after 3 p.m. because I want to be able to help them navigate and to also help them be optimal in the engagement that we need to have. Were you going to say something, JC?
No, I completely agree. I mean, like I have some colleagues that, just that they're not morning people.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, okay, you know what? We can meet at 1 o'clock. That's
Yeah.
fine. It's,
Right.
like it kind of goes back to that conversation of equity where we need to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And that's how we support each other. And I think it goes to the point of collaborating with partners, like, where can I support you? What else can I give you? And it goes both ways. It's not, in one direction versus the other. A teacher might need your help with something, because they can't continue the lesson or can't continue the strategies that they're using after school, and say like, hey mom, hey dad, can you do this at home? And let me know how it goes. But if you do it at home and you don't give that feedback, you haven't done your part. Even
Right.
if you did do what you were asked, it's following through as well. It's like, okay, to the point on this slide, being organized and making a note, note to self, today I will do this to support so and so, and what they're doing. And then, like, then follow through the next day or whenever they ask you, like, hey, well, how'd that go?
Right.
You gotta follow through.
Yeah. And then also think about this, right? Like, you're breaking down expectations that you have of that particular teammate into specific core behaviors. Like, I'd want you to do this, right? And being clear with like that exchange in feedback. So for instance, I feel uncomfortable when, or this is my goal for today, right? If it's with a therapist, or this is what we want to know. Also making sure that you have the same timeline, that you have an understanding of how long it takes to do things, because part of what makes people feel like we're not successful as a team is just having, we don't have shared understanding or expectations. So if I'm expecting my child or my, whomever to make a significant shift in behavior in a week, but the therapist thinks that it's going to take 3 months, and that is not clearly stated, then the parent is left feeling like, you failed, you lied, you didn't tell me, I don't know what I'm doing. So really being able to have like those expectations to be clear, right? And
Right.
particularly from the therapist side, I think that it's really important for you to use your professional expertise to kind of to tone down great expectations, because all of us go to YouTube and you'll find those videos where it's like, my child took one therapeutic assessment and boom, they changed, right? And it's no different than those of us that go to the gym one time and are looking for abs. We've had that joke before, but like really being clear about what that timeline will take. Go ahead, JC.
No, that's a great metaphor. And yeah, and the other thing is, like, from from the example that Evelyn was giving, like, if the therapist says 3 months, it's going to take 3 months to change this behavior, and you think it's going to take 1 week, you might be frustrated with the therapist for not doing their job according to what your expectation is. And just to flip that, the therapist might be saying, God, this parent is antagonizing all the work that I'm trying to do. They're really like a thorn in my side when I've told them like it's going to take 3 months. Maybe they didn't get that, so it's kind of like, all right, there are two different perspectives, and we need to learn to like understand that and see how they shape one of each other, and like how it like impacts the dynamic that we have. Because if we keep miscommunicating or misunderstanding the expectation, the frustration is gonna like only get worse.
Exactly. And if we don't develop the skill to confront what we experience, right? Because typically what happens is that like interactions get a little bit more tense, a little bit more passive aggressive, a little bit more unclear. And you're kind of all of a sudden you go from having small talk to grabbing your kid and running the hell out of the office, right? So just thinking about when you start to get there, or you start to really feel that kind of questionable space in the pit of your stomach, there's a movie, I don't know if y'all remember this movie. It's called Ronin, and it was an old school movie, maybe like from the 90s, but it was with Robert De Niro and someone else. But there was a line from that movie that I think about all the time, where they say, if there's doubt, then there's no doubt. And so my thought to you is that if there is doubt that I should say something, then there's no doubt that you should. If I'm like, should I, maybe yes, then the answer is yes, right? Even if the other person is prepared to say, no, that's not what I meant. But you should also be able to develop the skill to be able to say, are we okay? Is everything all right with you?
Just check in.
Just check in, right?
It's really simple. In yoga, like you'll always hear me talk about yoga, bless me, forgive me. But like we have a saying, like, if you can, you must.
Yes.
And it's the same thing, like if you can, do it.
Yes.
And to Evelyn's point, yeah. And if there's a question about it, like one of the things, like I always, with a new trainee, you always want to, like whenever you're doing that interview, you're always like, if you find yourself in a situation, one of the questions I always ask during an interview is always like, do you ask for help or do you try and figure it out on your own? What's your plan of action? And I hope that the interviewee will tell me, I'll ask for help.
Yeah.
Because it's better for you to just be able to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't know what I'm doing, or I feel like I'm in like uncharted waters and I just need a little bit of extra support to understand where you want me to go or what you want me to do.
Yeah. And most of us actually operate in the opposite realm, right? Where we think that showing some level of independence, like I tried it, I did something I did something independent, would actually would be the optimal response. But really, like it's thinking about, how would you like me to work this out with you also? Do you want me to try something, or do you want me to check in with you? Because there are caregivers that'll be like, call me on any little thing, like just don't try to do anything independently. And there might be people that are like, you got this. Let me know what you're doing, right? So there also is that sense of, which is why it's so critical to have that, to develop a relationship where people can be, and where you can share what your personal ideology and values style is. Because if you're like, go for it, let's try it, we're seeing what sticks, versus everything has to be in a specific way. And it's one or the other is not bad or worse. What it is that we're trying to find the right engagement for that piece, right? Like our collaborations optimally should be customized. We are not a one size fits all type of experience. So like JC said, like we started talking about time. For instance, there are some of us who are morning people and like our brain is active at, like, yes, talk to me at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then there are some people that are like, I don't want to talk until 1 a.m. I'm on that side. Like, if you really want something to stick with me, you got to tell it to me after 9 p.m. That's just the way that my brain acts. But, but so just recognizing that is something that might be an option for you as well. Also thinking about, so I'm going to, set up these next three, considering your own goals and experience, right? And find complementary teammates. So for example, if there's someone like, what do you want? Because I think also that we are not clear and we're taught to not really name our goals, but that we have to be clear. Like if we want to hold someone accountable, we have to know what they need to know what they're being held accountable for, right? And so thinking about like, what is also my experience? My experience tells me that my kid likes this. You have a level of expertise that you're bringing to the table by virtue of having the long relationship with your child. So you certainly want to have that experience be highlighted and considered at every turn. And then you want to find complementary teammates. So for example, if, and complementary in the way that for things that are important to you, right? So for example, complementary might be by location. Complementary might be like, for example, if you live in the Bronx, the best therapist might not be in Brooklyn for you, for your quality of life, right? And it's something that feels really small, but it can really impact the experience. Because if you're like, wow, it's a great therapist, but I gotta go all the way to Brooklyn. right?
Yeah, and one thing, Evelyn, like, in considering your own goals and experience and like your expertise as a parent, even if you're not an expert parent, because I don't even think there is such a thing, but you have the history and that relationship history of you and your child that nobody else has, no matter what their degree is in, no matter what their background is or their profession is. And if they're supporting you, maybe they don't have that, and you just need to share it with them, which will make your relationship more complementary, which will make it much more effective. Like, you can fill in the blanks for some of the people that are working with your child. One of the things that I always say when I talk to parents about advocating for their child, especially when it comes to like curriculums, like there are certain things that your child just doesn't learn that way. We're all different types of learners. Some of us are we're better just listening to things. Some of us are like visual learners. Some of us are tactile learners where we like to touch things. And you know that about your child. Maybe the professional working with your child doesn't know that yet. So maybe, you just have to enlighten them and have that patience and grace and say, hey, I appreciate you're trying to introduce this new curriculum, and you want to teach my child to, read like a whiz kid, in the next 6 weeks or whatever, but they don't really learn like this, the way your curriculum is set up. Maybe if there's a way you can kind of like, modify the curriculum or, like tweaks to it to make the child have better access to it, then that also helps everything start to work too. And then, the value you and the professional see in each other grows.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden your relationship grows, and like, oh, you know what? I can count on that person as a teammate. I can, like, I can get this, and I know that this parent will follow through, or I know that the counselor, will do this. And you just start like that. It's little things, little by little. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing that, when we're talking about like macro and micro things, right? We're talking about like big picture things that, for example, time of day for me will be macro, right? Because that just impacts the entire, potentially even my week. But then also thinking about like micro things like what you mentioned. For instance, I can share a story that when my son was in like 2nd grade, he had a whole stretch where he came home and he was absolutely upset with school. And I could not figure out what was happening. Like, what is going on with you? Like, what is happening? He's like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, right? And finally he says, they gave me a right hand chair, and my son is left-handed. And so, it got to, and I was like, to me, it felt like, why didn't you just tell the teacher that you're left-handed and keep it moving, but he did not have the relationship with the teacher. So he felt uncomfortable. And it was like the beginning of the school year. And the teacher eventually contacts me and she goes, it just so happened that right around this, like, if he told me this at 6, at 7, I received an email from the teacher that said something to the effect of, is everything okay with him? Because I've noticed that he's not, his behavior has shifted quite, just somewhat. He's not as engaged. And I said, funny you should ask, because he just told me that you seated him in a right-hand chair and that his body is physically uncomfortable, doing classwork. And so she goes, that's it? Like, I'm going to switch the chair in the morning, And the next day I pick him up and I'm like, how did you do in school? And he goes, oh, it was great. Right? It was great. But without that tiny shift or that piece of information that went to the teacher, then they could make an adjustment. And that adjustment impacted him so favorably, right? And so like just thinking about what are some other pieces that you may know about your child that you can, as JC said, share that in advance to say, this is what I've identified, right? Right now they're into, this is what they like or what they don't like, even if it feels popular. So for example, there might be a kid out there who doesn't like Encanto. Right. And so, a therapist out there being like, oh, I'm going to use this, for instance, to try to engage you with limited success, you might need to tell that therapist, like, my kid might be the one kid that doesn't like Encanto, right? But we're going to respect that. And so the way that also you can communicate this is with scheduling regular check-ins. And my advice around scheduling regular check-ins is to make it like any other appointment. This is not something that like, oh, if we get an opportunity, we will, but like every other Monday at 2 p.m., we have a check-in. And some check-ins might be 30 minutes. You know, I would clear 30 minutes on the calendar. And if you end up using 10 or even 8 of those minutes, then that's okay. But at least you know that that time is set aside and that you have shown it as a priority, right? Because time is a resource, and where we spend our time indicates what we value.
Absolutely. And you know, one thing that I always encourage our parents at any time is, you know, remember just to always communicate with the personnel, the school staff that's supporting your child, you know, and it doesn't have to be, you know, when there's a problem,
Right.
you know, like check in when everything's going okay. Hey, it seems like everything's going well. Is there anything else we can do?
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, have you noticed anything going on? You know, like build up those relationships. It doesn't have to be, you know, when there's a problem. And not everything requires an IEP meeting. It just requires communication. You know, oh, you know, check in with the principal. Hey, you know, I've had a really great experience with, you know, my child's teacher so far. And, you know, because compliments go a long way too. And
absolutely. And you know, compliments about different things, like, wow, you know, if there's something that you really want, that like a goal, that, and also it doesn't have to make sense to people outside of your team for that to be a team win.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for a parent-teacher conference.
No, absolutely not. Don't wait. Don't wait at all. Like, you know, I mean, it's the type of thing that, you know, because we're all, every team, every partner, every teammate is vested in your wins, and they're going to see your wins, both big and small. So this is an opportunity to really be able to go right into the next one, which is like celebrate success and be able to have a broad perspective of what success looks like. So success might look like, we got in and out of the bathroom with no problem, whoop, whoop, right? That's huge for your quality of life. And the people who are helping you to get to that point want to know that. They need to know that, because that's also part of their effort as well. And we can communicate that, and really, and this is an opportunity for you to show appreciation for different people's efforts, right? So like, we don't always have to wait until Christmas, birthdays, and, you know, Mother's Day or something along those lines to really show appreciation for effort. But like the opportunity to build relationships by offering compliments. Like, what is it? Was it Mark Twain that said that person can live on compliments alone? That it just absolutely makes you feel like, yes, I did that. I contributed to that. I'm so happy that my expertise is also contributing to someone's success. So definitely being able to celebrate it, not just with your child, but also with the people. And it's, quite frankly, it's great when I love when like people also do something fun, like create a video for the people that are part of the team to be able to say like, thank you, right? Of some sort of acknowledgement that they've contributed to that.
You know, and one thing that you'll always hear is like, you know, you never know how much you mean to somebody.
Yeah.
You never know how much of an impact you can have on somebody. And it's not just negative, it's positive stuff too. And, you know, like, who doesn't love to hear good job? Who doesn't love to hear like, hey, you know what you did with my child the other day? I don't know what it was, but it worked. What was it? Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah.
Because that way a teacher feels acknowledged. You know, sometimes we need motivation, and motivation comes from maybe not the student that we're working with, but also the acknowledgement from the family, you know, like, oh, they're paying attention, you know, like something that I did went, you know, got that far and it was noticed.
It made it work. Like, I will name that yesterday alone, I had a conversation with a colleague, and this was a colleague that I'd had an interaction with 20 something years ago, right? And at the time I was like very young in my career, like very green and really like lost. And I happened to work at this after school program where he was the person that was in leadership there. And now that we are older, like I see that he was not that much older than me at the time. But I was just like, wow, like this is amazing. Like, you know, like he's doing all this stuff. And so yesterday I had an opportunity to tell him that. in like a group setting where we're working on something else. And he was like, I never knew that this was it. And he sends me a message later and is like, wow, Ev, like you almost moved me to tears because I was so excited to see how I had impacted you. And I didn't even know, you know? And so again, like being able to take that opportunity, because we get really good at being able to tell people like, I don't like this. Like we don't have to wait until we're furious with a situation to be able to verbalize how it has impacted us.
Yeah.
And so just recognizing that that is a particular skill that everyone can have. Conversely, also the partners, like you can say, what is my love language? If words of affirmation are your love language, you also want to communicate that too, right? Like, tell me what I'm doing well so that I will continue to do more of it and get more motivated to do this, right? Do something simple, like even gifts, right? However you celebrate success. If you are a gift giver, and you're going to give a gift, also give a gift that you think the other person will find meaningful. And it's fascinating to me how like smaller gifts have like such a significant impact. Like the other day I loaded my Starbucks gift card and sent my team the code. And I was like, go get yourself a caramel macchiato today, right? It's not a huge cost, but it is a benefit in goodwill.
Mm-hmm. Or, like if somebody's a tea drinker, like getting them something that's tea related, like, oh my God, thank you for thinking of that. Like, like,
and thank you for seeing me. Thank you for seeing the fact that I collect mugs or I like pens or and this doesn't have to be anything that is even huge. Or for that matter, if you notice that somebody doesn't ever eat lunch and you know how to cook, bring them some food, right? Like, it's just like, these are all small things that can do. And certainly like if we were working together, I invite you to bring me food all the time. I am what I consider to be a really good taste tester. But just thinking about those small things that you might be able to do. If you make soap, make somebody a soap. If you, because the idea of like bartering as a benefit to be able to say like, I see you, right? I want you to continue to see my child. And it's not as transactional as we think, but it actually transforms relationships. And also be flexible and adapt, right? So there are some times when people are not going to be able to make that Monday meeting. And that doesn't mean that they're not attempting or that they're not vested. It just means that people have lives. And that sometimes we may have to be flexible, and not just with like timing, but also with strategies. So it'll be like, I noticed that you're doing this now as opposed to that, right? Like be able to be flexible and presume positive intent. Because again, if we're having those regular check-ins and we are being clear about what our goals are, maybe it's on a quarterly or biannually basis, then we also are able to think about what are some things that we're going to need to shift, if anything, in order to be able to continue to meet those goals.
Yeah, and I think also one thing to that point, Evelyn, like if somebody isn't available, it's also not personal.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it's automatically personal. I think a lot of times we just like, oh, what did I do? Or, oh, are they upset with me? And maybe it's not even about you.
Yeah.
And to remember that, a lot of people are like, oh, like it's me. I'm like, actually, it had nothing to do with you.
Yeah. But if we're clear about that, right, then we're also able to like really be thinking that, oh wow, like this person is needing to make a specific shift, or that they may have something going on, right? And so that goes right into the next one of like, we assume positive intent before we feel like, oh, they're trying to play me, or they're trying to insult me, right? Like the default to that. And quite frankly, for the person that is the recipient of like confused energy, you also recognize that it almost always has little to do with you. But when you're the target, you feel like you don't get it, like all the things that we've done, and now you're thinking that I'm not on your side, or something to that effect, right? But just recognizing that also speaks to like a lifetime of probably conditioning where it's like there's maybe challenges of like abandonment or anything along those lines. And it's like being able to communicate really clearly over the next week, I'm not going to be able to do this, or I can predict that this is going to be on deck for me, or like I have to take up another client, or something along those lines from the perspective of the therapist is also really, really important as well. Because sometimes we forget that people need different things than what we need. And so what is it that, like, for example, there's the golden rule, right? To treat people the way that you would like to be treated. But I know that bigger agencies like the YMCA talk about the platinum rule, which is to treat people the way they want to be treated.
Mhm.
And so the information that we might need to be successful is not the information that they need. And to honor that.
Somebody once told me, like, to stop saying the golden rule, because, like, do unto others as you would do, have them do unto you. And like, what if they what if they like being mistreated? Or what if they don't know that they are mistreated and they've accepted that, and maybe like, like, it was like, I've never thought about it that way. But yeah.
But that's an important thing, right? Right. So the golden rule is not universally golden. Right.
We don't walk in everyone's shoes every day.
Exactly. And it's not as generous as we think it is. Right? Because it still prioritizes you and the way that you experience the world. But in this case, it's like the invitation is there to see how other people are experiencing the world and to give them what they need to optimize their points of success. So it's really thinking about, where are we showing flexibility, generosity, compassion around what people may have going on. And then also recognizing your own triggers and angry feelings, right? For many of us, it takes us a while because we're angry that we even got to do this in the first place. I hate this, right? And if that's coming up for you, then that also can be a barrier to you being the optimal partner currently. It doesn't mean that you can't navigate it, but it means that also impacts the way that you show up to almost everything, right? And that and recognizing that you have an absolute right to be resentful over a situation, to be fatigued, particularly in this time, in this climate where we're in this thing for years, right? And what is coming up for us? Are we navigating enough? Do we have our own type of support, right? Because the same way that you have a support, that you are assembling a team of like Voltron, right? For your child, or like the Avengers, right? We want to be able to have people that can do different things, but what are you needing? Are you also implementing the self-care practices for your own self that will also assist you in being able to navigate this for the long haul, right? And your own triggers, again, will impact everything. And if you have angry feelings or other feelings, right? I mean, here we say angry feelings, but quite frankly, it doesn't have to be angry feelings. It can be sadness. It can feel frustration. It can be anxiety, right? It can be fear. It can be a whole host of feelings that are preventing you from fully diving in. Like, for example, when I'm nervous about something or I feel anxiety, I tend to sleep. Like, I'm the type of person that will just lay down in my bed and just kind of throw the covers over my head and really hope that miraculously, when I wake up, that the world will be a new place, right?
Yeah.
Does that happen to you, JC? Maybe not getting in the bed.
I mean, I'll go to sleep. I'll have a glass of wine. I'll eat some comfort food. I'll go walk my dog. I'm just like, yeah. Or, like, I noticed one thing, I'll fidget. Like, I'm like, I need to cut my nails. Like, I don't need to cut my nails. Like, I cut my nails the other day, but like anything that, like, to procrastinate and not deal with the issue. Like, that's where I go. But yeah.
And it's terrifying. And so really thinking about the fact that another benefit to having your notebook or something handy is to be able to like write it out. Sometimes when I'm really feeling frustrated about something, especially if I have to give feedback or I'm nervous about the feedback I'm going to receive, I try to jot down all of my fears and frustrations around it, because that enables me to like be able to make sure that I get it down, because sometimes even reading it to yourself, you're like, damn, I'm bugging, right? Like, maybe I'm not okay. Also navigating someone who can help you. But I know that Wendy Reyes says in the chat, a mí me da con beber café, right? So so you might, right? So Wendy wants to drink coffee. when they get a little bit tense. And that may be it too. I know that there's some people who are like, I need to go for a walk, or I need to go bike ride, or I need to like hit a couple of poses. Hi, you see what I did there? Yoga, right? Just to be able to navigate how the triggers are showing up in my body. Right? So these are all things that you can do. And again, the idea is that we all, and we talked about this last month, but really thinking about the fact that we have a circle of concern, a circle of influence that is smaller than that, and a circle of control. And so part of the responsibility that we have with collaborating with parents is to be able to manage our circle of control, which is ourselves, and how we show up. And that through our own management of ourselves, we're also modeling how we can optimally show up and how we expect other people to show up in the relationship as well. So I'm just going to stop sharing for just a second so that we can check in and see if there's anything else that's showing up in the chat or with the good people that are on Facebook. Are there any questions that anyone has right now that we can also continue to offer support around? I know earlier, go ahead.
Anybody, if you have any questions, please, if you're having the situation where you could like extra support or some suggestions.
Yeah, we know that Elizabeth had mentioned before about having multiple home attendants, and they have issues among themselves. So just also thinking about how that can, like, what are the goals, right? What are the expectations that you have of the home attendants, and why are they having issues among themselves? Like, it can be an issue in terms of my way is the better way. I manage this more often. And so is there an opportunity to be able to have a regular check-in with everyone that's on the team to make sure that people are on board, that they are having a similar goal, that we have a goal collectively, right? And that we're leaving a little bit of room for each person to really uniquely share their magic with your child. And then also dealing with adults that get anxious with your autistic children. If they're in a service capacity, then I would also just really be clear that, like, if they're getting anxious, this is their job, right? So like, they either need additional support, and where are they going to get it from, right? So whether it's from the agency or whether it's from you, but they need to have an understanding and awareness, because their role is to be able to, in some capacity, decrease stress, not add it. Mm-hmm. So being able to just be really clear, and sometimes those are the challenges of advocacy, that we have to sometimes make really strong and decisions that we might experience as not being the nicest, but they are the kindest, right? Because in this case, it may not feel nice to have to tell someone, I really like you, but you're not the right person for my child. But it is the kindest thing that you can do for your child, because quite frankly, chances are that they are experiencing the anxiety, even if it's not being verbally communicated. Like, the energy around it can be really challenging.
Paul Louis says, what are all the supports for adult children with disabilities? So for adult children with disabilities, supports can mean a lot of different things. And so if you could just be a little bit more specific in what types of supports you would like, we could kind of elaborate more. Like, it depends also on what setting we're talking about. Are we talking about them at like school or university, or just independent living? And also like the level of need, right? Because level of need is also subjective. It can be different for every child. Ms. Reyes says, I would like for help with the process with guardianship and through the courts. My son turned 16. They tell me that it's a lot of papers that need to be filled out. Ms. Reyes, that is true. There are a lot of papers. The process, it's good that you're looking at it right now when your child is 16. And there are a lot of parts to this process that you as a parent or a prospective guardian should consider if guardianship is the right level of control that you would like to have, and that would best support your child. There's also supported decision making. There's also some other alternatives that can support you. Unfortunately, in the city of New York, I believe it's only AHRC that offers this type of support with guardianship. I am looking right now at a couple of legal clinics at some of the local universities to see if they're offering any additional assistance, because AHRC unfortunately has a 2-year waiting list when it comes to guardianship support in filling out these papers. I will say, if it's something that you want to complete immediately, the court clerks are typically the best resource, since there is no other available support unless you want to hire a lawyer. There are great law firms that offer discounted pricing to support you in that, and pricing on a sliding scale as well. But that's a bigger conversation. And we at Synergia realize this, and we're partnering with AHRC soon, as well as Supported Decision Making of New York, the Cuddy Law Firm, and the CUNY Law Clinic for the Disability Law Clinic, to bring a panel discussion on this very topic, because we understand that there is so much need for this. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Ms. Valenzuela says, this is so true. It's a great point. Mr. Louis, what agency should I sign up for my adult children? So for adult children and agencies, you can also talk to Center for the Independently Disabled of New York. They're a really great resource for independent living and for adult children. That would be where I would start. I would also check with your borough's DD council to see which resources are offered in your borough, which organizations are thriving in your borough that can help you. And of course, if there's something more specific with regard to specific disability or certain needs, you can always reach out to us too. If we have anything, we're happy to share that information and pass it down the line. There's a comment here, I need life coaching. I can't manage so many people. But then if I cut down the team, then the small team will have a lot more work. How do I tell adults to stop using, hold on, I lost my place. How do I tell adults to stop using their cell phones while they're supposed to be watching my child? That's a great question. And I appreciate that, Ms. Restituyo. Yes, managing people is challenging no matter what, even when they're great people. Even when you have a great team, it's a lot of responsibility. I would suggest you speak with the agency supervisor that's supervising the team, if they all come from the same agency, and if not, speak to the leadership in that agency and tell them kind of like what you're going through and what you're seeing, because maybe there's something that they can address. I would first also approach the teammate you're having an issue with, and just kind of sit down and, as Evelyn and I were saying earlier, do that check-in. It's like, hey, is everything going okay? I want to say something, because I feel like I've seen you do this, and I feel like it's only causing more anxiety in you, which is having an adverse effect on my child, which is making the situation not so good. Is it just today, or is there something going on in your personal life? Is there something else that we can do to support you on my end? Is there something that your agency can do to support you on their end? And when it comes to, when it comes to cell phones, believe me, I lost an intern over a cell phone, sadly. And, and it just happens. And sometimes you just have to say, hey, when you're watching my child, I need you to not be on your phone. I need you to be watching, because they might, if your child has is an eloper or a runner, that's a real serious, possibility. And so
like it can be scary, right? It can elapse, like a point where you're not paying attention can have really dangerous consequences. And I think that as a parent, like, you're more than entitled to be able to say, this is what I need you to do, right? And to also lead with curiosity. So to say something to the effect of, is everything okay? Like, is everything go, you know, like, I noticed that you're on the phone a lot more lately. Like, are you trying to manage something? Because sometimes that is also legitimately the challenge, right? Where people might be like, oh, my mom is traveling, or my sister's not well, or I'm needing to check in more. So again, the leading with curiosity and assuming positive intent means that you're giving them the opportunity to tell you clearly, something is happening where I'm a little bit distracted for a little while, right? Because then that would also give you another entry point of being able to say, like, is this the right role for you right now? Because you have something else going on. And it's okay for us to be able to, like, essentially, you know, trade out temporarily, right? Or they could be doing other things, right? They could be making notes on their phone, or they could be doing something else. But again, if with that lack of communication, we're not 100% sure of what exactly they're doing, right? Unless you're navigating and you're realizing that they're like, right? While they're supposed to be taking care of your child, then we can also leave room for the idea that they might be doing something that is actually work related, or you can also say, I've noticed, or my child has told me, because there's also that the kids do say that, like, they'll be like, oh, I asked her a question and she was on the phone, or he was on the phone, or they were on the phone and they didn't say anything. So being able to utilize that, like, sometimes, and I think that what you mentioned also about the life coaching, because for many of us, we experience this as being exclusively negative feedback, when it's not. Like, I think that the story often that we tell ourselves that is going to happen about feedback is a lot different than actually what happens, right? In this case, especially with the aid, like, you're in a, I mean, I don't want to say it this way, but you're in a power position, right? Because your word can really shift their present work. So in which case, you kind of, I would definitely take it to say, let me talk to you for a second, right? I'm a big proponent of praising in public and correcting in private.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have something great to say, tell them in front of your child. If you have something that is not so great to say, tell them and be like, you know what, like, just so you know, like, I've been noticing, like, is everything okay? Because I don't want somebody, and and I mean, I've had to say things like that. Like, for example, with my own mom's home health aide, like, there was one that I noticed that was on the phone a lot, and I was sick about it. Like, I'm talking about, like, I hate giving that type of feedback. It is not something that I enter in lightly. And I don't want to be that type of person that goes and tells, like, the person that is at the store, like, can I speak to your manager? Right? I don't want to be that person, but I will. Right?
I'll be
And
Karen.
right. I don't want to be a Karen. And so what I did was that I was starting to get increasingly more upset about it. Right? Like, I was, and I was telling myself a story. They don't listen. They're not, like, they're just like, if something happens to her, like, I mean, I was planning all these things. Something happens to my mom, I'm gonna beat her. Like, I'm just gonna, like, tell her about herself. And then finally I was like, girl, just go on and talk to these people. Right. Yeah. And I was like, do you mind if I just talk to you about something? And I just been noticing that you've been spending a little bit more time on your phone, and that's making me a little bit uncomfortable because, just for transparency, like, my mom has Alzheimer's. So, like, there are very often, like, she'll pick up something and put it in her mouth. And it can be like a button. It can be something that fell on the floor. So she needs a lot of vigilance. And so I was like, I have concerns because she's picked up something before and put it in her mouth. And that's not okay because I have to work. So, and I was just like, and after I said it, and I practiced, because that's another thing too, that when you're not used to giving some type of information, you also want to practice so that you can do things like neutralize your voice and really lead with compassion, right? And curiosity. And that actually ended up being that she ended up explaining that her mom was ill in another country and that she had been communicating quite a bit with her siblings. So, and realizing that, like, I didn't even realize that how distracted I was about the process, like, deeply apologize. And then we were able to get right back on board. But again, that was the type of, you want to be able to say, like, not that I'm saying this to be controlling, but that I'm saying this because my role is to be protective of my child.
Yeah. And the other thing I was just going to say to Evelyn's point, and maybe we haven't said this enough either, is, if you feel like you want to practice with somebody, talk to a friend or somebody and like, hey, you know what? Just role play with me here, like be this person and I'm going to talk to you about it. If you feel like, like just so you can feel more comfortable when you go into that conversation, like there are certain difficult conversations, like we have in our lives, like, oh, maybe you're going to propose to somebody, right? Or maybe you're going to fire somebody, or maybe you're going to hire somebody, you're going to interview somebody. Like it's always good to practice, and so, if that helps, if that's helpful as well, so like how you have that conversation, Mr. Estudio, then like that should be helpful as well. Yeah, I think that's great.
Yes. Go ahead. We have a couple, we have just one more slide and I know we're running out of time, so I really wanted to share that. But, this last slide speaks to some of the things that we've been talking about, which are really tools and tips. But this one here in particular is like really thinking about anticipating problems and how they impact our potential capacity to perform a service, right? Or to do something. So really thinking about the problems that show up for people, illness, job loss, rapid change, or grief, right? And so thinking about the fact that one of the reasons why it's so valuable to also have those check-ins and to be cognizant and writing things down is that because people do change jobs. And sometimes you'll have you'll have a partner or a teammate that has a real sweet spot with your child and they move. You want to be able to really be clear about what their best practices were so that you can tell the next person, look, this is what this is what JC did that we really loved and we want them to continue to, we would like you to to continue to do this in this specific way, right? Here we have things like a lack of understanding. So for instance, one of the ways that can show up is in the sense of everyone, like we talked about before, not having the same understanding about autism. And they might be really kind in some ways, but not understand autism. So this is the person that your home attendant might do your laundry, but not understand when your child has a meltdown. Right. And so those are things that also impact. Thinking about other things like technology issues, right? So if you are a text communicator, but somebody's like, call me, you're like, what? Join the millennium, right? But really having like shared understanding of certain things. Thinking about Zoom fatigue, right? For many of us, a lot of these meetings have become virtual. And we can have so much resentment toward learning on Zoom, they can actually impact us from actually getting to the sweet spot of what we can take in. So just, like, oh, it wasn't the same before they started having virtual appointments. It wasn't the same, and it wasn't. It's different, but it doesn't mean that this particular style is not safer or that it doesn't have some benefits. And if we try to do the work to really identify what we have, what are some things that are wins using Zoom, then I think that's also a really helpful thing. And also, as someone mentioned before, is to ask for resources and support. Like, kudos to Elizabeth for recognizing, like, I need life coaching around this. Hell yeah, it's a lot to be a caregiver. Let's just name it, right? That no, we don't get prepared for this. All of a sudden you're trying to navigate and manage and do all the things. And like JC said, that you are managing multiple people who have multiple needs, right? Who show up in multiple ways at multiple times. And so like navigating all the things really may require additional resources because there is an administration to this that we don't always account for.
Mm-hmm. And, whenever you're working with trained professionals, like you can ask them, hey, maybe you're not seeing this with my child, but personally, I'm having this kind of thing going on. Do you know where else I could go for additional resources?
Yeah.
Or reaching out to Synergia or a parent center, that's federally funded because we vet all of that information and resources and, like, hey, do you know of somebody that does this? Maybe it's not what you do in your day-to-day work at your organization, but I trust you. Yes. We have this working relationship. Do you know somebody? Can you help me with this? Do you know somebody that can provide resources or put me in contact with somebody?
Absolutely, right? And being clear about what it is that you need and how you need it. And so, the last piece that I want to offer is this Ramapo tool that is actually my favorite Ramapo tool, which is called the structure grid. And so this actually helps us to navigate. And I find this to be really important in different areas and different arenas, right? So what are some things that we can organize to promote our personal online, and it says online community goals, but really like community goals, right? Our team goals. And so these are the 4 things that in general, we can control. The space, the time, the routine, the people, right? The space, time, people, and materials. So for instance, in this, if someone is in your household, you might be like, don't go in my bedroom. You need to put that down, right? Because you want to be clear about what it is that the expectation is. Time or routine, like must take a nap. Optimally, the nap is before 2 p.m. Because sometimes, like everybody comes with their own set of experiences. And so we tend to be biased toward the way that we do things. Mm-hmm. And without clarity, we will continue to do it the way that we do it. And it can completely be misconstrued, right? Like, it's like, oh, you do things like that. But it's like, yeah, the last 3 kids I worked with take a nap at 5 p.m. So I'm just giving them a nap at 5 p.m. because that's just it. And you might be like, no, who told you that? I needed my children to take a nap by noon, 1 o'clock, because I don't want to be awake at 10 p.m. with them. So it's like, so those are the types of things that you really want to be explicit around, because that starts to kind of like flesh out and offer a foundation of how it is that you're going to navigate together. So like people, who to call when, right? You might be like, if there's an emergency, call this person, but not that person. Because that person is going to continue to freak out while this person is going to just be like,
yes.
Right?
Call my best friend. Do not call my mother.
Yes. Right? And call my mother only after you have contacted my best friend and there's a plan. Right? So for those of you, because the default people may not always be the right people for the right thing. Mm-hmm. Right? And so really thinking about, and this is also an opportunity, this people box is an opportunity for you yourself to be able to think about, what do I need? Imagine if you could create one of these for yourself. What would be your optimal space? If you had complete control over your time and your routine, what would you do? And I honestly think that for many of us, we would surprise ourselves, right? We'd be like, I wouldn't wake up until 11 o'clock in the morning. I would have a leisurely breakfast. I would... right? I would work from 2 to 8 p.m. and then I would go to a concert, right? Like these are things that we also need to be in deep exploration around, because everything else becomes challenging if we're not actually living as close as we can to the way that we actually envision like optimally our lives. And then there are going to be people who are the complete opposite, who are going to be like, I wake up at 5, I work out, I feel great when I do that. I go out for a little morning walk, I walk the dog.
Right. And, and sometimes as parents of children with disabilities, we don't have that luxury. Time is like water. It's very precious. Yep. So, like, all right, maybe I do this exercise that Evelyn has on the screen right now, but, like, I don't have time to go like, work out, and do an hour-and-a-half yoga session. Maybe I only have time to go for a 10-minute walk. That's fine. Like just identifying like, all right, maybe I can't do the whole thing, but maybe there are things I can do that are like in smaller amounts and increments to incorporate, to make sure, we're living closest to our optimal desires and what we can and parameters that we can and can't live within. But also that we're also providing that self-care and cushioning that into our day-to-day.
Absolutely. And that is so critical, because that impacts the way that we show up for almost everything. So for example, and you can look at this and also be able to check in when certain things change for you. So for example, if you're like, if I really feel good after I do yoga, but I forgot, I lost count of when was the last time I did yoga. And I may need to look at my routine to be like, in order for me to feel functional for a couple of days, I need to have a good session, right? So again, this can look like, who are the people that enable me, that add value, that not just add value, but also add ease. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? Who are the people that add ease? Who are the people that say yes? Who are the people that I need to kind of like convince? Who are the people to avoid, quite frankly, right? Because there's also that there are draining people that don't add to that they just like, right? And then also thinking about materials. What are some materials that you would like your child to use with their therapist or with anyone else that you're working with? What are some things that you want them to learn? What are some goals that you have that feel reasonable? And again, like, going back to what JC said, being cognizant that, you're also depending and valuing their professional expertise. So you might be able to say like, I want my child to bounce a ball, and the therapist might be like, we're working on that, but we're not there yet. Right now, we're just going to get them to hold the ball. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be that win. And then we can say like, all right, that's cool, right? But again, with those regular check-ins, then we can assess success and always be in redefining it, because I think that with those check-ins, we get to really be able to say, wow, we are doing this, right? These are the wins that we have. These are the things that we still have to go. And so I'm just going to share with you lastly an example, right? So again, thinking about how you might home online, you might have your dedicated retreat spaces, or really thinking about how you delegate and assign tasks, check in with elders, right? Home online, thinking about things that you may want to listen to, right? Have things handy. These are all ways that these show up. So I'm going to stop sharing. And also like here, we're planning our day at home. We're scheduling rest, hydration, playtime, all the things, so that we can also be prepared. Because almost everyone likes to know what is on the agenda and what's on the pipeline. And so we get to actually prepare for that. But yeah. I know that it's 12 o'clock and we are like at time. So I don't want to take up any more of your time, but any last thoughts, JC?
No, I think this is great. I think, we just have to be reminded and like be intentional, and, provide grace, provide each other grace, not like you said, assume positive intentions, and just check in, it doesn't have to be accusatory or confrontational. It just has to be, like from a good and genuine point of like concern, like, hey, I noticed, yeah, you're on your phone a lot more lately. Is everything okay? Is there something, like I noticed you also get like a little apprehensive after you've been on your phone for a bit. Is, like, can I do something for you? Do you need to take a walk? Is there something, yeah, like giving that extra step and extra care goes a long way, and it'll help you in supporting your relationships and supporting the people that are supporting your children.
Absolutely.
And it'll
help you make decisions too, because if you know that you've made that offer and you've led with curiosity, and it's like, I told you, we had this conversation a month ago, and in a month you still haven't made any type of thing or really made an effort to communicate with me. Because I do think that there's also the invitation there to kind of let people know how you operate and how you optimize things, and be like, I need to know things. For example, I don't like surprises.
Yeah.
So I often try to make that real clear to folk, because if I get to be surprised by something and I'm thrown off, it completely will like impact the way that we engage. So please don't try to, don't surprise me. If I have to ask you about something, it's not like, that's just it. But again, with the communication build, then you can get ahead of those type of things, and you can try to like prevent some of the challenges that really deeply impact the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and yes, if there is anything that we haven't discussed or you feel you'd rather discuss privately offline, please feel free to reach out to us. I'll be sending a follow-up email the next couple of days, if not Monday. But yes, and sharing the resources that Evelyn has shared with us here, especially that structure grid. And yes, I found that to be very helpful. And if there's anything else that any of you have found that's useful, please feel free to send it our way. And check out our Facebook. We're always posting important news and tools and advocacy events for you to be involved in. I will say that Evelyn will be back next Tuesday. We're going to be talking about grand families, intergenerational families, where we have found a lot of grandparents are finding themselves as the primary caregivers. And so we want to offer that support because it's often overlooked and forgotten. And then tomorrow I'll be doing a presentation on special education and knowing your rights. If you're a parent and you'd like to know what your rights are, if you're new to special education or even not so new and would like a refresher, feel free. There'll be plenty of time for questions. And then next Thursday, I'll be doing a presentation on transitioning to adulthood and how you can support your young one as they are beginning to transition, especially like once they achieve 12 years old and start getting older and closer to being out the school door and maybe even out your door. So yes, but yes, feel free to send any comments and questions our way. And Evelyn and I will be back next Tuesday. And yes, I'm going to activate a poll really quick and a really short poll. Evelyn, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, JC. Always a pleasure to be here with Synergia. Have a great day, everyone.
And
Take
to our
care.
interpreters, thank you so much. Bye, Evelyn.
Bye.
And of course, a little bit of music. And here goes the poll. And to all of you on Facebook, thanks for joining us. Have a great day.